We're about ready to get going here. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, today is our very last all hands meeting for 2023. And we're going to do it a little bit differently this month. We're going to go through a couple of quick updates, and then I want to turn it into a discussion with you all that are attending to hear what you all are wanting from the MSCC as we pull together additional plans for 2024. With that, we're going to start some updates, and I'd like to turn it over to Miss Lanika Starks. Lanika?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lanika Starks, and I'm responsible for MSCC operations and grants administration and compliance at Internet2. It's great to see everyone today, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to introduce the newest member of the MSCC team, Leslie Jones, who started this week as the MSCC Director of Program Development. In her role, Leslie will be responsible for conducting outreach to MSCC organizations and partners to ensure we continue to offer programming, workshops, and other things that are beneficial to the MSCC community. Please join me in welcoming Leslie to the MSCC team.
And Leslie,
And
can we say
Leslie,
hi?
yeah, if you want to take a minute, Leslie, and tell us a little about yourself, go for it.
Okay. Well, everything's pretty much in the announcement, but I live in Washington, D.C., so I'm D.C. based. Personally, I'm married, mom of three. My oldest is actually a freshman in college. Just texted me to say he's packing to get ready to come home for winter break. So we're excited about that. My background has always been in education, whether it's as a school teacher, technology instructional coach, and working for educational nonprofits. Most recently, I worked for Junior Achievement of Greater Washington. Prior to that, I worked as a government contractor, supporting historically Black colleges and tribal colleges and other MSIs, and pushing out a scholarship program for that's sponsored by the Department of Defense. I also have a nonprofit that promotes historically Black colleges and universities. So I've long been passionate about education, particularly higher education and minority serving institutions.
Thank you, Leslie, and welcome.
Welcome, Leslie. We are so excited to have you. All right. So I don't know if everybody has seen our fancy new website that launched about 6 to 8 weeks ago now. I encourage you to check it out if you have not done so already. We've got a whole bunch of content on there from past workshops, announcements like the one about Leslie that's just gone live, all sorts of fun things. I encourage you to take a spin through the website and see what all you can take advantage of there. Communities of practice. This is something we started, I guess, back in the summer. And the cybersecurity community of practice, you may have seen an updated calendar invite from me earlier this morning. You find the last meeting for that for 2023 is next Tuesday. We're really excited to have Anita Nikolic come in and talk about artificial intelligence with us. And then the Cyber Infrastructure Plan Community of Practice, they just had their last meeting for 2023 the other day, but they've already got the ball rolling for 2024. And they will be meeting on the second Tuesday or the third Tuesday of the month, which will be January 16th, I believe. Lauren, correct me if I've got that date wrong, but I think it is the 16th.
That's correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Lauren, would you like to talk about some solicitations?
Yes. So as many of you who are on our MSCC email list have probably noticed, we send out a variety of opportunities in emails that are titled Cyber Infrastructure Opportunities roughly every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on what new opportunities have come available. And here is a list of some funding opportunities that are cyber infrastructure specific or domain specific, but heavily related to cyber infrastructure. Most of these at the moment are with the NSF, just because that's what has upcoming deadlines. But But we do keep an eye on other programs. For example, there's one here that's from the Department of Energy. And each of these you can learn more about through links on these slides when the slides are distributed, or by reviewing our cyber infrastructure opportunities emails. There is a link to that email content also on this slide. And if you want to get updates like these, join the MSCC email list. But the first few, and really all of these, have deadlines that are coming up kind of soon. So if you hadn't noticed them in our previous emails over the last couple of months and started working on them, I would still encourage you to check some of them out. Most of these programs are annual or intended to be repeated on an annual basis, as is the case for a lot of NSF programs in particular, since these are mostly NSF programs. And so they're good to keep your eye on. So in that first CI specific category, I'll just run through a little bit here. The cyber training for short program allows campuses to fund cyber infrastructure professionals. This could be CI facilitators or related roles, even roles that would wear more than one hat, including some facilitation or not, but could include systems administrators, network administrators, and there are opportunities in that program to collaborate between institutions around a team of such folks. Oh, and actually I did that backwards, sorry. Cyber training is about building programs that allow you to train users or cyber infrastructure professionals. It's that second program that is about funding cyber infrastructure professionals at one or more campuses. That's referred to as the SCIPE program. And then the granted program, which has applications available anytime, you can submit anytime, is about growing research programs with emphasis on HBCUs, TCUs, and other minority serving institutions. So it's a good way, that's kind of an easy, low entry way to develop some new research programs on your campus or to expand things that already exist. And then I won't go into as much detail in the domain specific CI related opportunities, but these are reflecting, like I said, funding opportunities specific to a particular research domain, but where we've noticed a cyber infrastructure heavy component, either around something like cyber or climate resilience centers. A lot of these do also, if not stated explicitly in the title, emphasize, prioritize recipients being at HBCUs, TCUs, or minority serving institutions. So these are all just a sampling of the types of things you can learn about in our cyber infrastructure opportunities emails. These are funding programs in particular, but we include also programs that are for students, like internships, research experiences, training for students, for IT staff, for faculty. So be sure to check those out through our email list. And there's a bit more detail about each of these if you look at the slides for today. Again, we've got links so that you can learn more about them. Emily, you can go through the next slides too. These are really just resources in our slides that you can look at later that we won't talk about a whole lot more here verbally. And then we'd like to announce save the date for our second workshop on NSF cyber infrastructure funding. That will take place January 24th from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern. This is a workshop series, the first of which was executed November 8th, and a large number of folks attended, upwards of 80 some. This is a virtual workshop. The first one provided a general introduction to NSF programs that are cyber infrastructure centric, like the Campus Cyber Infrastructure or CC STAR program, and some others. And based upon responses to a post-workshop survey, we are putting together at the moment an agenda for this workshop 2 in collaboration again with the QUILT and the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, where the QUILT is an organization that coordinates research and education regional or state networks that can connect your campus to high-speed networks dedicated to research and education traffic. And AHEC is our longtime partner, engaging with a variety of stakeholders across the tribal colleges and universities. So the topics that we're emphasizing in this next workshop, to go a little bit deeper than we did in that sort of general overview of multiple programs, one, we'll be focusing a lot more on the NSF campus cyber infrastructure and TCUP program areas, given indications in the post-workshop surveys. There will be regional breakouts with the opportunity to engage with and learn from your local, or locally oriented research and education network. And there will also be a set of breakouts with shared experiences from folks who have received funding from these programs in a set of key funding categories within them. So if you're interested in that, we'll be distributing a lot more information about that over the coming weeks and into early January, but please join us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lauren. Another little save to date. We are in the process of planning our second annual meeting. I know a number of y'all on the phone and joined us in Atlanta last year. We are looking to do tentatively May 29th to 31st in Washington, D.C. Stay tuned. More information will be forthcoming. Additional things we're planning for 2024, more workshops. We just finished the one in New Orleans. That was a dual site workshop at Dillard University and SUNO, Southern University in New Orleans. All the workshop content from the workshops from all of last year as well as the previous year are available on the website. So please feel free to go and check that out. But we will be announcing dates and locations early in 2024, so stay tuned for more information. We're also pulling together the programs for all of these all-hands meetings that we hold monthly, and we will be looking to bring in outside speakers to talk about national CI resources that are available for you all as well. And then if you haven't had a chance to do this yet, we can only do what we can do together, and we need y'all's input and help with things. And so we really would like for folks to get involved a little bit more with the MSCC, help us shape things, and join a committee. Tenny's put in a link where you can fill out a form to get involved. So please feel free to join us for the MSCC committees. We've got several of them that are already up and running around membership and nominations, programs and priorities, and we will be getting the research and learning working group running here shortly. All right, with that, I'd like to, sort of have a conversation about additional things y'all are looking to get from the MSCC in 2024. And I know people have some thoughts and ideas. And I know people might be trying to have lunch that are on the East Coast. But guess what? Oh, I have a volunteer, Miss Krause. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. During our last cyber infrastructure working group, community of practice meeting, something came up around the new, Lauren, help me remember. It was the Gramm-Leach-Bliley new regulation that has recently been passed and the impact to higher ed. Higher ed had previously been excluded from that and has now been included. And I think that if we had some kind of ongoing conversations around regulations, compliance, that does kind of fall into cybersecurity, but outside of cybersecurity. And I thought it was a really good conversation starter that we had. So maybe quarterly updates or updates from interested parties that could provide our community with the impact to some of these regulations, and maybe even some small one-off communities of practice where folks could share best practices in writing or adopting those regulations to their own campus. And hopefully my meandering made sense. I had not formulated my thought before starting to speak, which is very common for those who know me.
Hey, Emily, could I say something about that?
Absolutely.
So AHEC has been working with a particular person to actually cross the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act requirements back into particular cybersecurity frameworks. And I think Alex is on here, but I'm sure once we get a little bit further with that, we could share that. I guess we need to discuss it more, but that's going to make it a lot easier for smaller schools to make sure they're hitting all the marks on that, because it went from 3 requirements, which was pretty easy, to 9 things that we have to do now, which is a little bit more involved, and there's some detail in there. So just to put it on people's radar that AHEC is working on that.
So sorry, this is Brian Fisk. Will this, so in times past, I know in 2020, we hired it out to be GLBA compliant. We don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, but is that what a lot of schools are doing, or are they collaborating and seeing where they fall? Anybody?
Can you repeat the question?
So to be GLBA compliant, I know in times past we hired a consultant to come in. I don't want to do it this year, seeing as some of the rules have changed. I wanted to know what other schools are doing. Are they hiring it out, or are they collaborating amongst one another? Just trying to get general idea.
So one of the requirements is that you conduct, and I don't think it's specified how frequently or whatever, but that you conduct a security audit, a cybersecurity audit, and then you meet or you address all those things in there. Now, how you get an audit done, that's, school by school. For the AHEC school, so for the tribal colleges, all of us, well, I think there was a good portion of us hired an outside firm to come in and do it, because it's pretty extensive kind of thing that you have to go through, because it's not just an IT thing, it touches all your different procedures and stuff. So yeah. it's a big bear. And I mean, for us, we're still going off of that assessment and correcting on it. I think we're going to try to do a little bit more collaboration, because it's a pretty expensive endeavor to bring someone in, especially for a school.
Right. So that's exactly right. That's exactly why I asked, because we did the same thing in 2020 to come in, and you have financial aid involved. It's other departments, like you said, other than IT. And when they find these red points, it's up to you to correct it, and that's a big job. So that's why I asked.
And I think that's what we're trying to do with the AHEC initiative is developing, either a crosswalk between one of the popular, cybersecurity frameworks with the GLBA, so you can quickly go on your own to make sure you're meeting that. And I think that's what we're going to end up doing. And maybe that's something MSCC should dig further into, is how do we encourage people to collaborate on that more.
Al, I'm glad that you had brought this up. And Alex is on the line. We do have this great resource that we were just shared through AHEC yesterday. There are other resources. EDUCAUSE has a community group and some resources on this, but it's a huge lift for small institutions such as mine, just for the safeguards rule audit. Just the objective changes on that and the deadline changes are kind of intimidating. So I think it's going to be based on institutional needs, framing what your requirements and needs are by doing collaborative work through organizations such as MSCC and other organizations, and then seeing what you really need to pay somebody to cover or not. And so anything we can do to create some kind of a workflow or framework around that, I think would be really helpful for everybody.
So if I'm hearing properly, there's an opportunity for the MSCC along with AHEC and perhaps EDUCAUSE to give some common baseline assistance with this and help institutions determine where they can approach things together, but where they might need to find an outside consultant. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. If Al, I think, stepped away for a second.
Emily, I was just going to add, I think I would go back to Leah's first suggestion of quarterly or some kind of update on maybe a wide range of compliance issues, because this is a shared challenge across all education. I mean, large institutions like ours, this is a huge bear, and it takes up all of our IT time is setting up NIST compliant environments to start meeting new requirements across all granting agencies for research, that sort of thing. And, we're only going to solve it in the way that Peter just said, collaborating around best ideas and using consortia type work all the way across the board. So I like what Leah said, because it's a changing environment. So I don't know, I would endorse revisiting the topic.
And it may be that there's a, to Matt's point, this kind of quarterly update, but coming out of it, do we have another community of practice? Or what the CI community practice is doing with these workshops, do we one off a workshop specifically about GLBA, so that it's not a 15-minute or a 30-minute with a whole lot of questions, that folks can bring their scholarships and student aid folks to the table, maybe even, and have a working session for a couple of 3 hours. Maybe if AHEC has all the answers, they run the meeting and just help us get through it. But I know that it's not just an IT question. There's a lot more than IT involved in it. And as I mentioned in our call the other day, we're often the ones that are the conveners and the doers that help get things done, but it is a people process question as much as it is a technology question. And I would encourage folks to not try to just figure it out on your own.
If I had one more statement, it would be, in general, the cybersecurity and risk assessment or risk registry activities that are going on at your institution have broad spillover. So even when you're doing something like a CC Star or a NSF grant, and there's that section about, cyber infrastructure security, we all need to be cognitive and well informed about where we are as an institution. My institution's looking at NIST 800-171 compliance, because we're hoping that a lot of the future federal recommendations are going to be in alignment with that. But as Matt was saying, even huge institutions are buried by 800-171 compliance. So
So Sean has Picer's thrown into the chat whether folks are in touch with the regulated research community of practice. Is this something folks on the phone are familiar with?
I am. It's a community of practice that brings together folks in sort of data management, information professionals, but is really around how you support controlled and classified information and other forms of data that need different forms of enhanced security. I don't know that they are sort of directly coming at this from the same angle that, say, IT staff would in approaching GLBA. But I agree that there's certainly some common interests there. But in that case, it's more around data that would be used in like research, for example, and not as much around, say, administrative data. At least that's my understanding, and others could add to that.
Yeah, I find that the kind of research data governance doesn't get as in depth around the data processing side of things and the systems that are involved. It's more in the after the fact where it's stored. I would say that they're a great resource when you're looking at CI planning and things of that nature, but maybe not in this specific compliance instance, because it's not a research type compliance or that kind of data.
Okay, what other things would y'all want from the MSCC?
Well, if I could say one thing that's a bit related to that, it could be something separate as well. But basically, we at UNCF there's been discussions about trying to launch a HBCU cybersecurity advisory committee, just as and a community of practice. So on the one hand, that would be I can see how it could be something totally separate, but it could also be something that's aligned with this. So it hasn't been started yet, but it's something that we'd want to look into. And obviously, I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel. So if the thing already exists, then let's just connect with the folks that exist. Or if it's something we could just, join and be a part of, we want to do that as well.
So a number of y'all have been piping up around this topic. Could I get a show of hands of folks who might want to go offline and have a deeper discussion around this? All right. Philip.
Are we
Lauren.
Which this is this, Emily?
The sort of community of practice, GL, around the
GLBA requirements?
Yes, that.
One thing, Leah, as my co-coordinator in the CI Plan community of practice, where this kind of came up this week, we were talking about the security components of a CI plan and what to put in. So that's how GLBA came up there. One idea that was floating around there was that we were curious if the cybersecurity community of practice might be a good place to have a sort of deeper conversation about this topic, and perhaps then to brainstorm further opportunities to support our campuses and working together, sharing solutions. I think Al already mentioned a desire to be able to share what his campus is doing, and that community of practice might be a good place to take some of this discussion.
Agreed. All right, so thank you, Anna, for asking people to pop their email addresses in, because we will download this chat, because I'm not seeing all of my hands for some reason. But we'll keep that going for a few minutes if that's all right. And we will grab this from the chat afterwards. And you can always send me a private email if you'd like, in case you want to think about it for a little bit. All right. Other thoughts? Philip, do you have your hand raised because of the offline conversation, or because you have an additional topic?
I was just living in the past. Sorry about that.
You're living in the past? I like living in the past. Who else wants to keep living in the past with me? Or do we want to start living in 2024, since we are 24 days away from 2024? Funny how that works out. Other thoughts from y'all around 2024? Don't make me start calling on my Hollywood squares, please.
I saw a question in the chat earlier that was who is eligible to go to and what's the process for going to the conferences. I know that it's some conferences, depending on what they are, the conferences and the workshops may be different. But if somebody wanted to just kind of at a highest level talk through the annual meeting, it may be one where I don't know if there's, once the date and times are decided, how does that all roll? For anybody that's new on the call, but I did see at least one question come up about that.
Thanks, Leah. Lanika, would you like to address that question for us?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Of course, someone was asking the process, who all was eligible to attend the conferences and workshops is the first part of that, and then what's the processes for after that?
So typically anyone is able to attend the MSCC conferences and workshops. However, we generally reimburse travel expenses for those specifically from HBCUs and TCUs. Does that answer your question? Okay, great, thank you.
All right, y'all, don't make me start going to my Hollywood squares.
I will add one thing too, that the CI Plan Community of Practice, our next meeting in January on the 16th that Emily mentioned, is going to be a outlook for the year kind of discussion, just brainstorming among everybody there, what they'd like to discuss around CI plans, CI planning, and adjacent topics to guide what we do, what we talk about in that community practice for the rest of the year.
All right, y'all.
So I have maybe a question that is similar along the GLBA lines, but as you all look at your campuses and look at the next 6 months to a year, what is it that you would like MSCC to help you with, to program with? We may not have people to throw at it per se on your campuses, but there may be other ways that, again, based on we're better together, we can get more done together. What's in the back of your head? What's keeping you up at night? What is it that this community can help you with? And you can put it in the chat. You can put it anonymously in the chat to myself or Emily if you don't want to say it out loud. That's what we're here to do. We want to make sure that our programming for the next year, especially during the all hands meetings, are making are presenting value to you, because this is your time and this is your community. So help us make it better for you. Can talk about how to fail at retirement if anybody wants to hear about that, but I'm
trying to embrace the silence while people ponder this. What I think I will also do is, in case y'all don't have my email address, I'm going to drop it into the chat if you want to drop a line later when a thought occurs to you, 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's the way it rolls sometimes. Please feel free to do so.
One thing I think can be a value and a strength in this community is sometimes I just think, if I see like MSCC cyber infrastructure, I'm thinking about hardware and implementation and things like that. But like, I know something that Al is involved in, and I am too, is how do we do the soft side? How do we create cohorts? How do we get the information in and out of the process from our researchers, from people who just have an idea about research but don't really have anything on the ground yet, to things that are complicated, like we need a research DMZ or, you know, something like this. The whole soft side of the driver behind the need is really something that I don't have personal time to do. I mean, because I'm fixing stuff, I'm trying to implement stuff. So working on the cultural and behavioral side, the creating the local communities of interest, and then trying to get the information in and out in a way that's organized and that in a way that's sustainable. I mean, I can have one workshop, but that's not really going to be, you know, a sustainable community building activity. So sometimes I think working on the softer type of needs isn't in the title, you know, as much, or isn't in what pops up when you say cyber infrastructure.
And I'll add to that. It's something that came up a few months ago in the CI Plan Community of Practice, that we prioritized some other things first through the end of this calendar year. So I imagine it might come up when we do brainstorming in January. But also at the last all hands meeting toward the end, you heard a little bit from some folks, some of whom are in the room today, who have implemented CI facilitators or who have otherwise, you know, in lieu of having someone dedicated, been going around and executing some discussions with faculty. And there are probably more folks than who spoke up then who could share their experiences. And so that's definitely on our radar. Thank you for emphasizing it. But I'm interested in hearing from others, since that sort of took us to the end of the last all hands meeting, if there are other ideas besides providing, you know, creating fora for all of you to share your experiences with that and learn from each other. There are other ideas that folks have in that particular space. And while you're chewing on that, I will add that in our first workshop on NSF CI funding, we talked about how to identify and characterize science drivers, which is an NSF term, but really it's the sort of research and education drivers on your campus that don't have to be science, but that have potential cyber infrastructure needs. And Russell, if you're here, if you'll link to your template for executing a discussion with a faculty member to start from what are their education research priorities, and getting out from that how they use computing and data in a way that can inform CI requirements. But ideas from others on what besides experience sharing and that template discussion would be helpful to you.
Yeah, I want to say something, and forgive me if this is like, Philip, where have you been? We talked about this already. My bad. Somehow, like, some meetings got scheduled on my side that always coincide with every single one of these meetings I couldn't make anymore. So I don't know. This may be old stuff for everybody. But what are there? I know there's things about, like, we had the like having discussions and sharing sharing ideas and thoughts. Would it be helpful if some of the resources that were shared, or even just some of the actual partnership, were aligned with, were basically focused on identifying concrete action steps and then walking through the actual action that needs to occur? And that alarm test says I've been talking too long. No, sorry. Sorry. So just like, so basically going from the ideas to action. And just like whether like assistance with project management and walking these things through the change management aspect of these things. And once again, if that's been discussed already, sorry, but just really the implementation, the change management aspect, and all those things. I think that once again, for everybody, I work at UNCF, we're intermediary. We work with several HBCUs, so I don't work at an institution. However, a lot of what my team does is we provide a lot of change management support. Because if you're talking about smaller tuition dependent liberal arts institutions, the resources often are going to be, people may be doing 2 or 3 jobs already. So just having that on the ground support for the implementation, change management. The ideas are great, but then people are like, well, where's the funding? And then where's the actual implementation help?
So if I can check my understanding of what you just said, Philip, it sounds like you see an opportunity for the MSCC perhaps to bring discussion around not just engaging with faculty, but how you integrate that in a change management process that includes, say, advocating for resources at your institution. Is that correct?
Advocating for resources, yes, and then also if just even helping to connect with resources that will help to make things happen. In the event that we don't have capacity to actually do the implementation work, and can we have some folks who can actually help with the change management, not just the planning or the framing the conversation, but the actual getting it done part. So yes, the whole thing, what you said plus.
Got it. So resources to support a campus, templates, maybe action plans that they can run with on that are really around CI strategic planning holistically, engaging with faculty, advocating for resources and input from different stakeholders on your campus, developing an implementation plan, a CI strategic plan and implementation plan.
And what I heard, Lauren, was beyond CI, right? So if we do the GLBA thing, for instance, right? So we come up with, here's a template that the campuses are going to need resources. And I think NSF model, Philip, if we could do some additional collaboration with you and you all share with us, MSCC, how you go about doing that. And again, to your point, let's not reinvent the wheel. If you have a model that does that, and we can incorporate it into some of our work streams and some of our communities of practice, then we're amplifying each other. And those kind of partnering on areas where, that separate conversation, I'd like to say, is there a way that we can have an offline conversation from MSCC to you to see what some of those crossing areas already are, and for 24, how can we plan to align better? I think if we could also include AHEC in that conversation, this might be a really great bringing all of us together to amplify each other's voices. And we have everybody in the room at this time, and you probably have your plans for 24 planning. AHEC probably has their. Let's combine all these ideas, and then instead of even having competing workshops or webinars, maybe we could promote each other's and have one that may be a little bit more broad or more deep, given the expertise that we can bring in the room. So just my more than 3 cents, I think that's 30 cents, but still.
No, that's fine. And we partner with AHEC on other initiatives as well as CCA, and I see Macy from CCA is on the call as well. So we partner with those organizations so I think there'll be a lot of natural alignment there.
I think one thing that we need to work on is that as we're seeing some successes with our POCG things, we need to bring some of those projects to the larger MSCC, especially when there can be additional engagement in those particular projects. And those are very actionable things where, like, for example, some Jupyter Hub kind of stuff was set up and other schools can just be kind of folded into that. And through that process, you're gonna increase your faculty engagement, just giving them some exposure to that, and then hopefully they are engaged with the other faculty, because that's how you're going to build those trust relationships. Is a lot of it is faculty to faculty. They don't want to hear from a CIO.
Yeah, I think I also heard Philip say something. I hope I got this right, Philip, that maybe something that's out there. There's a lot of resources to submit your plan and help in getting it out there, but there's sort of a, what if we actually get this award or funded like situation? There's one person here. How are we going to implement this? And I mean, I know there's already a little bit of MSCC resource in that, but I think increasing the capacity there and giving people more confidence that we could actually implement this if we get the award And maybe the train the trainer aspect of that, if they come from an Internet 2 provided resource or something like that, is something that isn't all the way there yet. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I think that's, was that close, Philip? I don't know.
It was that nail on the head close.
Okay.
Yeah, because this basically we can have all the plans and everything, but when it comes to the implementation, there's a part where it's just like, but who's going to do it? Which of these 12 plates that I'm spinning right now need to crash to the ground so I can do this? And so we often, the role that we often play with many of our institutions is we will try to come alongside and actually walk through the implementation to identify partners who can, here's a gap. Hey, maybe we can work with this partner who can actually do the implementation work for you. You know what I mean? And it's because the planning is great, but then it's just like everyone agrees on the plan, but then it's like, how do we get it done while maintaining the current function? So Matt, you hit it correctly on the head.
Other things as we think about 2024. It's only 24 days away. I'm trying really hard to embrace the silence while y'all think. It's not my comfort zone, but I'm trying.
Well, we could just ask for folks' thoughts or thumbs up, down, sideways on this idea around having some more in-depth workshop type activities, combining some of the resources together. Does that ring good? The GLBA type exercise, do those things ring true for you all? Because I think that, again, we want to make sure that as we're doing our planning for the upcoming year, that you all find value. So I think what we're asking for is not to just keep hearing ourselves talk.
I think that's a great idea. Once again, there's a lot of the central theme when I first heard about MSCCs that were better together, or doing together what we can't do separate, or better together than we are alone. So I think if we have things that are, it could be a series of webinars, it could be things that are repeated, but instead of, not repeated, not competing, but things that are, we can have a central source, and we can all work together to highlight things to our collective networks. I think that's just better. And then there are just blind spots that each of us are going to have, and strengths that we will have that occupy each other's blind spots. So I think that just seems to be a logical. It seems to be a very logical thing.
So as y'all saw for 2024, we're already planning, additional campus workshops. We'll continue to do the all hands meetings, resuming the fourth Thursday of January. I don't have a calendar in front of me. I apologize. I don't know which date that is off the top of my head. But going back to Leah's point earlier of what keeps you awake at night. I guess everybody's sleeping soundly.
Emily, this is Ken.
Yes.
It's cyber risk in my environment. And I think that discussion about resources, structure, I'm a methodologist of sorts, process oriented. Anything that would bring structure that would lead to, and excuse me, not showing my camera, I'm trying to get some lunch in between my meetings there. But anything that would lend sort of a structure to an outcome of filling the gap. There's a one-time shortage of resources, as you know, on these campuses, with personnel and finances. So to solve that issue, anything that will be a sort of a pipeline towards a plausible outcome of how to fund the shortage of personnel. Like, for example, I plug that right now. I need two full-time faculty members in cybersecurity. And for the last 4 or 5 months, I'm unable to find anyone to teach cybersecurity out there at the level of knowledge and skills of competency-based cybers that I need. So that's a major shortage for me, and my classes are starting to fill up. So I've got a crisis that domain. But then also on my campus infrastructure itself, we are encountering, quote unquote, some cyber risk issues, as we all are. And my IT team is sort of a little bit ill-equipped to address it. So that's sort of somewhat, I hope, I know that's a systemic issue across the board, but those are the things that kind of keep us awake at night.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Williams. So it sounded like sort of two different issues, one from a faculty identification for cybersecurity programs, and then IT implementation and related to cyber. Am I hearing properly?
Yes, the infrastructure. Our mission there, the infrastructure, the robust nature of the infrastructure, and coming from those of us who've been in the business over the last 4 decades, or what I have been anyway. If you don't have all domains addressed, then something is going to be a weak link in the chain. Something is going to cause the risk. If it's human, if it's technology, if it's processes, something is going to be weak. And as a hacker, as an exploit, I'm going after the low-hanging fruit. What is the low-hanging fruit in our environment? And it's like playing guacamole. When you fix something else needs to be addressed, and that presents a weakness.
Okay.
I was just going to add maybe something to help with Ken's and to get it, like, how do you do more with less here, is that something Bobby Clark, I know, has brought to the table a few times, and he doesn't seem to have made it today, but when you implement these CI plans for research, you really shore up your campus infrastructure for the academy as well, for all of the things you're trying to protect. So when you do it right and you're able to meet the compliance and needs that you have for your research environment, there's a lot of tangential good things that happen for your cyber infrastructure environment at your campus. So I don't know if that just means, double down on the cyber infrastructure planning, and maybe in communication, that's a bit of like, why are we doing this? Why are we investing this much time? Because it's going to potentially kill 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. So just a thought. I know,
and that's a good contribution, Matt. I appreciate that much. I think maybe what Philip addressed earlier on is, what is priority? How do you prioritize that? Yeah, our researchers are charging ahead with their own research priorities. In the interim, of course, these other risks that are popping up need to be addressed, and the CI plans can probably get there. But which goes first, the chicken or the egg? It's a good point that you brought up.
Thanks for sharing, Matt and Dr. Williams. So with just a few more moments left to go, one last call, or I can give folks a few moments back to their mornings, middays, and early afternoons.
I just want to ask the, I know that there were lots of notes taken. What is it that you need from any of us to help move some of those action items forward? I know that you did a call earlier for folks that wanted to help with one of those. I put in that I'd be happy to participate in the MSCC, UNCF, APEC. I think I got all those acronyms right. Conversation. I'm not sure how, or if you need anybody else from this room related to those next steps. But I wanted to make sure that we were all volunteering if you needed volunteers.
I think, well, the team will take all this feedback back and, look at what y'all have had to say and what we can actually do and what fits within the mission and scopes. But hearing these things is invaluable. So we really appreciate folks sharing.
And I would say one other thing is we've identified that some of the goals here would be, for MSCC to support Fora for sharing experiences. So we're going to need to be able to call on folks to talk about their experience, to think about that deliberately so that others can learn from it. And so please do engage with that. And if you see that something's happening and you would like to contribute but haven't been requested to, please do let us know. Don't be shy about that.
Folks can always reach out to any one of us. So please don't hesitate to do so. All right. I got 59 after the hour. I think we can call this a wrap on 2023. We really appreciate everybody's input today. And I hope that everyone has a happy, safe, and safe holiday season. And we will see everybody in the new year. All right, y'all. Thank you so much.